Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Real treat tonight. Another former student joining us. This is Nabila.
Hi.
Hello. You are one of my greatest success stories. Maybe not mine, but I
Thank
think one of
you.
the great success stories that come out of our school. Um,
No, you can take credit.
yeah, thanks. So how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Class of 2015,
hmm
correct?
Yes, class was 2015. It
Awesome,
seems like
awesome.
so long ago, but it
It
feels like it was
does.
yesterday.
It does. I know. It's been a while.
Yep.
So glad you made it
hmm
through the pandemic all right. Glad that you're a
Thank you.
graduate of the prestigious Columbia University.
Thank you. Yeah, I made it
Right.
out right before the pandemic. So I graduated in 2019.
Oh, so you
It
had
was
a
perfect.
somewhat normal college experience. What
Yes,
what
I did.
hopefully everyone's getting back to, right? Because I think 2.5 years college experience, just talking to some of my students, has been definitely different.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
got the
No,
full
I didn't do
experience.
any of the virtual stuff. Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
So, uh, so let's start by kind of talk about who you are, what
hmm
what you're currently doing. We'll go back through your high school career. All right.
hmm Okay. Do you want me to just
Yeah. Go
introduce
ahead.
myself?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Nabila Naseeb. I was in Joe's class um, in 11th grade. I currently work in education consulting, but before this, I went to Columbia University. Before that, I went to Lee High School in Springfield, Virginia. I was always very interested in like politics and history, which is why I think we had a good like rapport. And I was part of the IB diploma program, which is not very common in the US. It's more of an international thing, but it's comparable to, the AP program at most schools. And so it's just like a bunch of rigorous history classes, English classes, very writing intensive. Yeah, I was always, involved in student government. I'm from Afghanistan, so I'm pretty like politically conscious because of where I'm from. And Afghanistan's like always on the news and stuff, and we would always talk about that. Um, so yeah, I went to um Columbia and I studied political science and international affairs specifically. I was able to graduate in 3 years because I did the IB program. So I got like 30 credits, which is a year's worth of college credits um, because of my IB diploma. And so I graduated in 2019. After
Well,
high school, I
also
actually took a gap year and I taught English in Afghanistan.
that's
But I
awesome.
had already got into college before that. Yeah. Um,
So
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 yeah,
hold on. So
then the
you
pandemic
but
happened after college and all
right.
of this.
So not
hmm
only you went into Columbia University with 30 credits that they accepted, that means you had to have
Yep.
scored very high on your IB exams, not just taking the IB exams, correct?
Yes. So you had to not just pass your IB exams. I think you had to get a 5 or above, and the IB exams are out of 7.
Yep.
I think the AP
Right.
exams are out of 5, right?
AP exams are out of five. And that's still,
hmm
AP, you score fives across the board in all your exams, you can earn
hmm
credits. Now it varies depending on
Yeah.
what they accept. So very, very similar in that, and more schools are accepting IB scores
hmm
now. But the difference being IB is all writing, AP there's still the multiple choice component on most of the exams. Okay,
Yep.
so you're 2015, which means it was 2014. So coming into that year, you were on the
hmm
honors track, right? We were in IB World School at the time, so
Yeah.
you had not taken any IB classes, but you were definitely interested in the subjects. Um,
hmm
Walk me through what that experience was like, because myself and the other teacher who taught IB History Americas looked at us as the gatekeepers of IB, and that we're going to kind of come at you a little hard with the right. So, what was your experience like junior year with that?
Yeah, definitely you were because I remember a bunch of students, thinking about doing IB or not based off of the history classes and how intensive they were. But I had taken all honors beforehand since I was in like middle school and onward, because I knew that I just wanted to always do the best classes so that I would have the best shot at college. Um, so yeah, I was mentally pretty prepared for how rigorous it would be. There were definitely still some hard days. I think I just wasn't aware of how much reading we would have to do every single night. That's the biggest thing. It's pretty lengthy reading, and then being able to take like concise notes on that rather than, because sometimes when you read something, you just want to write down everything that you've just read, but you have to be able to get the main points of like large pieces of writing and then write that down and make sure to memorize that. So I think once I HOA, like your 11th grade definitely was a struggle, but then by the time I got to 12th grade it was much easier because of how like difficult it was. It was a learning curve, in
Right.
HOA for sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you also openly push back on where you need to push back on with your historical opinions, correct? I remember.
Yeah, so if I ever, felt um any type of way, I definitely made it known in
Right.
class. Which I think it's good to have like that type of relationship with your students because otherwise you don't want them to be feeling very overwhelmed but not telling you. So I
Yeah.
think I was able to like tell you if something was overwhelming. I was definitely like, no, we're not having this quiz today.
Right. Well, and it's funny because um the the IB exams, because of how much writing we did, I feel
Hmm.
like, in terms of your growth, which I saw that junior year because I specifically taught you, but the
Hmm.
framework we gave you of APEC really just, I mean, it kind of created, I don't know, almost like a directional point for you in that
Yeah.
you were already a good quality writer. You already had the analytical skills. You did have the rigorous reading, but the focus
Hmm.
of like this is how you do it to get the score you need, that really
Hmm.
just like accelerated you even further. It's not that
Yeah.
were at a 0 and we made you a 10. It's you were already performing at a high level and we made it even better. So I saw that because, and I say that because I know I ended up using a lot of your essays as exemplars in terms of, right, name removed,
Hmm.
but like this is what good proof and explanation, analysis and reasoning, all those
Hmm.
elements that we preach, right? You could express in your writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely already had the interest and then already the motivation just from like taking those honors classes beforehand and wanting to get into good college. But like you said, like I always had that I wanted to give pushback. I wanted to be able to debate. There was a lot of times where we would watch like Jon Stewart in class and all of that stuff. And I liked having that pop culture add into it. Um, but sometimes you just don't know how to do that most effectively or clearly. And then with that whole APEC direction that we were given in IB, I was like, okay, this is how I can be concise with my thoughts, but still get my point across.
Mhm.
So I still use that to this day. I mean, even in college, I used to think like assertion, proof, explanation, conclusion.
Right.
I still would use it all the time because one thing I learned even more so in college, but I had learned in IB is being concise is much better than like the lengthy,
Right.
detailed things. And then also it just being timed because our essays would be timed in class. You didn't have time to be, going in this direction and that direction. And that feels limiting at first because you're like, oh, well, I can't get my point across. But at the end of the day, it makes you a better writer because it helps you get the point across.
Right. Well, and it's
Yeah.
funny you say that because of um, the IB rubric is very comprehensive, but when
Hmm.
we taught you the framework, we knew you could get there if you were at your best. Working within that timed framework, I always get
Hmm.
the like high school students are all the same in that they're like, how long does this have to be to get a good grade?
Hmm.
And it's not about length; it is about quality of your writing, and that
Yeah.
if you can express your thoughts clearly in a concise manner, then it won't take you that long to get through it.
Yeah. And my favorite writing now is the shorter, like concise, clear writing because it's like, why make this a super lengthy thing when it doesn't need to be? and it just
Right.
shows that the student or the person, the writer just really knows what they're talking about. Because
Right.
often when you're trying to hide that you don't know what your actual point is by
A lot of
writing a
words.
lot, and then the reader or the teacher grading you will kind of see through that.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely. I think even like sometimes we would do those exercises where you would grade the another like peers APEC.
Yeah.
That
Peer
really
review. Yeah.
helps as well. Yeah, that really helps as well because you got to be in the seat of the teacher and being like, okay, just get to the point. And then when
Right.
somebody
Right.
would
Right.
do it really well, you were like, okay, perfect mark.
Right.
So you learn a lot from teaching as well, which we were able to do in class.
Awesome. And this then you went on to 20th century topics, which was more of the world
Yeah,
history point of view. And you guys did
yeah.
20th century as a DBQ, right? Document based question.
um I don't think so.
I thought they did,
No.
but you did the IA
Mm-mm.
though, the internal
But we did
review.
IAs, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, you graduated from Lee, formerly Lee, now John Lewis High School.
John
Um,
Lewis, yeah.
and you basically have 30 credit. You score high enough, you get your results back in July. You have enough credits that I mean, like what reaction did you have? Like, I mean, we really never talked about that. Like,
I was so happy.
when did you find that out? Like, we were like, oh, you got sixes and sevens on all your IB exams.
So when I got into college, I applied early decision to Columbia. So
Okay.
that's like binding, right? And shows that you really want to go to that school. So I found out in like December of 2014 that I got in and that they have this policy that if you do score these marks on your IB diploma program, you can get up to 30 credits off. So I knew that it was a possibility, but we got our scores in July of 2015, I think. So you take the test in like May and then you get your scores back like 2 months later when school's out and you've already graduated. So, but then I had to send over my scores to the um the university and they just process it through and they just like email me back and they're like, okay, it's done. And like a one sentence email and I was like, what?
So you are
But I was
officially
so happy. Yeah.
you're a sophomore you're a sophomore at Columbia University.
Yeah, a sophomore.
And
Um, it was a little daunting too because it was like, okay, now that I have these credits, I can graduate in 3 years, and that's just much smarter to do financially because you don't want to pay another 64 grand because it's a private
right.
school. It's not, and it's out of
Yeah.
state. um, so you're like, okay, I can't really take as many electives and explore majors and stuff. I really just need to pick what I'm going to study now and make sure I have
More
all my
focus.
classes so I can graduate on track. But I mean, I was pretty tired from the IB, so that's why I decided when I did get my scores back to take a gap year
Yeah.
and then graduate normally like with my class.
It's awesome. And with
Yeah.
that gap year, you didn't go spelunking across Europe.
Europe.
You went back to, well, people go backpacking across Europe or find
Yeah.
themselves, right? You were like, nope, going
Hmm.
back to Afghanistan. I'm going to teach English there, right?
Yep.
And what
Exactly.
was that? What was that experience like?
It was amazing. I've always loved, I think I've just have a lot of respect for education and my dad was working there at the time in Afghanistan anyway, so I had a place to stay and stuff. And yeah, I just taught English, which like everyone really like the kids really loved there. I taught fifth, sixth, and seventh graders, so it was like they weren't too young that they were not getting it, but they weren't like too old either. It was
Right.
like the perfect age, but it was really fun. I loved it. I'll always like cherish that like having that year there. Especially now because like you can't go back now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it only makes you a stronger candidate for hiring too, in terms of like the diverse experience on your resume.
Yeah.
So you went into Columbia sophomore, where most of your classmates had already a year under their belt,
Yep.
not only in the university but across the spectrum of all the people you graduated from Lee with, right? So
Hmm.
this is your first year as a student, but you're already expected to be a sophomore. What were the demands like? The writing demands, like what did you feel prepared even going in as a sophomore?
I think I would have felt very calm if I hadn't taken the gap year, but because I had taken the gap year, it was like you forget how to do so much stuff because I hadn't been writing essays for a very long time. When the
Right.
IB, I was writing so much all the time. But then for a year I stopped and then I come back to such a like rigorous competitive place such as Columbia, and everybody's like, okay, write your first essay. What do I do? But thankfully I was able to do it because when I got my grades back, I was able to graduate from Columbia with a 4.0, and I got like A's throughout all my classes. So except for calculus, we won't talk about calculus, but I mean math's never been like my strong suit, but and I studied, politics, so I had to write a lot, and I was able to do it. I definitely, I mean, I would tell all of my friends, because I had a lot of international students that attend Columbia as well, and they had done IB, and so they knew that it was very writing intensive, and we were all like, what we learned in high school and just that whole APEC, doing peer reviews, being able to read a lot, because in college you're kind of just thrown a lot of readings.
Right.
Professors often are in academia, or that they're doing their own scholarship and their research. They're not very much like the teachers that you have in high school.
Right.
So they'll kind of just show you interesting journals or articles or books that they think are cool, but they won't really like teach it to you. You kind of have to know how to read the material and get the important points from it to come to class with like an understanding of what's going on, and then be able to write essays on and present on it and stuff. So yeah, just the sheer amount of readings that there were in college, I felt better prepared for it after doing like classes like HOA and topics, definitely.
That's awesome.
And it showed in my grades,
Yeah, the prestigious Columbia University 4.0. Are you like the
Thanks.
second most famous person after Hamilton? I know.
Oh, I had classes in Hamilton Hall all the time, and I used
Yeah.
to pass by and sing all the Hamilton songs.
There's nothing named
Um,
after Aaron Burr there, right? Or no?
no.
I struck that from the record. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So now you're out. You're kind of into the career field.
Yeah.
Um, how is that helping? Is that still helping you? You still applying it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those are skills that are going to be useful to you everywhere, because just even when you're having like a conversation around the dinner table with your family members, or in relationships, or in professional settings, you're always going to need to be able to advocate for yourself, get your own point across, and like be clear, be concise, all of that stuff that like that type of scholarship teaches you. But professionally, yeah, I think the teaching definitely helped, because now I work in college consulting, so
Right.
I help students with admissions, and yeah, it just helps you be better at communication,
Yeah.
and you're
Absolutely.
gonna need that across all like fields, professional fields.
Awesome. When you running for office? Not yet.
I don't know. Tomorrow's the election, so maybe you guys can all
We'll see.
write my name on the ballot.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well,
Yeah,
I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you joining us
of
tonight.
course.
Look forward to talking to you again real soon and hopefully seeing you in person because we haven't seen each other since
Me
the
too.
pandemic. But
Hmm.
it was great having you on tonight. Thank you, Nabila.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.